Coming up on today's show, we're going to check out the Browns interview list, which is already forming for their open offensive coordinator position. And then we're going to look at 6 candidates I believe Kevin Stefanski should check out for the OC job. But first things first, I want to start the video off by having this conversation, which is, why was Alex Van Pelt let go? And I believe that the answer to that question is actually going to help us figure out what direction the Browns want to go in to find their next OC. But ultimately, I think Alex Van Pelt was let go because he had 2 years with Deshaun Watson as his offensive coordinator, and the offense had a lot of ups and downs with Watson, right? They ended the year with Watson on a very high note, but you can't look past the slow beginnings and the slow first halves with Watson as quarterback and AVP as the offensive coordinator. Now, another wrinkle to why AVP was let go is, according to Jake Trotter, to clarify further on the Alex Van Pelt situation, per multiple team sources, the Browns discussed a reassignment of roles with AVP on the coaching staff, but ultimately the two sides opted to part ways. And like I was just saying, you had 2 years with Watson at QB, AVP as the offensive coordinator, and the offense was, let's be honest, underwhelming at times, right? Just not consistent enough. And Kevin Stefanski learned last offseason to improve if necessary. The defense was underwhelming. They went and got Jim Schwartz. It kicked ass. The special teams was lacking a spark or a burst, so they went out and they got Bubba Ventrone, and the special teams unit saw a dramatic increase. 2024 is a boomer bust season for Deshaun Watson, right? I don't think he's gone if things don't go super duper well this upcoming season, but the Browns might begin looking for their next quarterback. So what is 2024 all about? Investing in Deshaun Watson, because you've already invested $230 million. And clearly, Alex Van Pelt was not getting the best out of Watson. And that's not all AVP's fault. Kevin Stefanski definitely has some level of blame for Watson not being the superstar QB that you traded heaven and earth for. But also, Kevin Stefanski was not going to fire himself. So what's your next best option? Fire your current OC. Bring some fresh brains in, right? Bring some fresh ideas. And hopefully someone else can come in. And I wouldn't say save Deshaun Watson, because I'm not here standing like Deshaun Watson has been a disaster of a quarterback for the Browns. The guy won a handful of games this year, went 5-1 as a starter. And his last 3 games as the Cleveland Browns quarterback, we saw some really, really good play out of a number 4. But I think collectively, even the Browns would agree, things have not met $230 million worthy of expectation. So if Kevin Stefanski is looking to bring some new ideas in, that means AVP's got to go. Now let's get into the interview news here, as Andy Dickerson has been the first candidate to interview for the open offensive coordinator position. This comes in from Jonathan Jones over at CBS Sports. Now, he was the longtime offensive coach for the Rams, serving in a multiple variation of roles, but primarily on the offensive line. In fact, he went over to Seattle to be their pass game coordinator, and then that morphed into their offensive line coach, which makes me wonder, is this an AVP replacement, or is this a Bill Callahan replacement? Because when I first saw the Browns are interviewing the Seahawks offensive line coach, my initial reaction was, offensive line coach, that's what's going to get the best out of Deshaun Watson. No. And if you start connecting some dots out there, well, Bill Callahan's son, Brian Callahan, is currently interviewing for the Tennessee Titans head coaching vacancy. And if that Callahan gets the Titans head coaching gig, he might bring Pops Bill Callahan down to Nashville to be his offensive line coach or be his offensive coordinator. And if that's the case, maybe the Browns are already preparing to lose, in my eyes, the best offensive line coach in the NFL. So they are trying to replace him with Dickerson, who did a tremendous job with the Rams. Like, he took over in LA, in St. Louis back in 2012 as their offensive line coach and just helping out in various roles. 35 sacks allowed in his first season. Compared to the previous season before Dickerson got there, 55 sacks allowed. So a dramatic turnaround. And then he coached a lot of running backs up. Zach Stacy, Trey Mason. They were rookie running backs that didn't have much of a path in the NFL until Dickerson got his hands on them. And of course, you might have heard of a guy named Todd Gurley, who up until getting arthritis. He was the best running back in the NFL. And then most recently, helping out the Seattle Seahawks offensive game on the ground. They're averaging 4.7 yards a carry since 2021 when Dickerson got to the Pacific Northwest. That is 4th in the NFL. So that's the latest on Dickerson. We'll continue to keep tabs on him, but just something to monitor of, are the Browns pursuing an offensive line coach as their OC because they're preparing to lose their own offensive line coach? Just, connecting some dots right there. But let me know if you agree with the firing of Alex Van Pelt. I think he probably got the short end of the stick a little bit because he's not solely responsible for the offense being underwhelming at times with Deshaun Watson. But ultimately, someone's head's going to roll, and it's not going to be the head coach's. So, yes or no down below in the comment section. Let's get into my 6 replacements for Alex Van Pelt. Starting with Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator for now, Tim Kelly. So, Tim Kelly, in his first season as the Titans OC, I thought did a pretty solid job for what he had to work with, right? The end of the Derrick Henry era, transitioning from Ryan Tannehill to Will Levis, and the Titans offense was not dreadful. Now, of course, he's got some connections to Deshaun Watson. From 2014 to 2018, he was on the Houston Texans offensive coaching staff, and then he took over as the offensive coordinator from 2019 to 2021, which is when Deshaun Watson led the league in passing back in 2020. So Watson has some familiarity. He has some comfort with Tim Kelly, and Tim Kelly can step into Cleveland not needing to learn what buttons to press to get the most out of Watson. He will already have a leg up on everyone else in terms of how to maximize Deshaun's best strengths and whatnot. And for that reason, he is a candidate to watch for. Now, before we get to the rest of the candidates to keep an eye on, I do want to shout out our sponsor today, which is Factor. Get started on your resolutions with Factor so you are ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious than takeout. Get chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door. They are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you. Make sure to head to factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 and use code BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. That's code BrownsChat50 at factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. Because I love you guys so much, I put all that information in the description and the comments of today's video. Moving on to our second AVP replacement. What about Patriots offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien? So, in his first season as the Patriots offensive coordinator, I don't think on paper it looked like it went super duper well, but what he had to work with at the quarterback position, going from Mac Jones to Bailey Zappi back to Mac Jones. Yes, it didn't look like it was super encouraging and inspiring for another team to hire him, but I think Patriots fans would tell you they probably outkicked their coverage in terms of the lack of skill they had to work with on offense. And then there's the whole, he used to be the Texans head coach. I don't know if you knew this, guys, but he was the longtime Texans head coach. Didn't have a graceful ending in Houston, but from 2018 to 2020, when Deshaun Watson was the full-time starter and he didn't suffer a torn ACL, the Houston offense ranked 15th in scoring. Now, Deshaun Watson back in 2020 when he was a member of the Texans, I thought had a really interesting quote on BOB, and I wanted to share it with you guys. I feel like I don't think that people understand the work ethic that he puts in, the time that he puts in to watch film and try to make sure this organization is at the top of its game. He's probably the hardest worker in this building, in this organization. He's not going to stop until he's a champion. That's what I like about him. Now, this one feels like a long shot for 2 reasons. One, Gerard Mayo would have to relieve BOB of his duties in New England, and I'm not quite sure if Gerard Mayo wants to do that. But if he does want to bring in his own offensive coordinator, the second issue is, does Bill O'Brien want to be the offensive coordinator for Deshaun Watson? Not saying that he would dislike working with him, but it might be a bit awkward to go from being the head coach of this quarterback to being the offensive coordinator, taking a step down. But if that's the only opportunity, or if that's the best opportunity for Bill O'Brien to save his coaching career and potentially get another head coaching gig, he might look at Cleveland as an awesome opportunity because he knows how to make Deshaun Watson the best of to bring the best out of Deshaun Watson. So this one feels like a long shot, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on. Now, whoever the Browns hire, we're going to keep you guys informed, which is why you have to subscribe to the channel, because you don't want to be the guy at the water cooler who has no idea the Browns went out and got their offensive coordinator, or if they are just zeroing in on an OC. So buckle up for what's going to be an awesome offseason, hopefully, and help us continue to grow here at the Cleveland Browns Report. Third AVP replacement to look at. What about the Seahawks offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron? He's been getting a lot of chatter this offseason with Pete Carroll out in Seattle and maybe Shane Waldron moving on from the Seahawks. He has been the OC since 2021, so a bit of a transition going from Russell Wilson's last year to Geno Smith. And I think we can all agree the job he has done with Geno Smith has far exceeded anyone's expectations. Before that, he was with the Rams in various coaching roles. And like I was just mentioning, Geno Smith since 2022 and onwards ranks 9th in passer rating. Now, the Seahawks offense under Shane Waldron has been somewhat middle of the pack. I was kind of surprised to see that these numbers were as low as they were. I mean, the best part of their offense has been like just in terms of ranking has been their points for at 15th in the NFL. But there are some great offenses out there, and the Seahawks, I wouldn't say have had no talent to work with. Like, you got DK Metcalf, JSN, Tyler Lockett, but maybe it's not one of the superstar loaded rosters offensively, a young offensive line. However, I think Shane Waldron has done a really good job in Seattle, and he's definitely worth considering. Let's move on to our fourth replacement option. How about QB coach / pass game coordinator for the Rams, Zac Robinson? You know how every single offseason there is some young, up-and-coming, hotshot, offensive-minded guy that comes from either Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan's coaching tree? That's this year's guy. It's Zac Robinson. So he's only been with the Rams as their pass game coordinator and quarterbacks coach for the last 2 seasons. He's only been coaching in the NFL since 2019. He was a 7th-round pick out of Oklahoma State back in 2010. Now, he is currently interviewing for the Bears offensive coordinator opening, so there's obviously some level of national attention on Robinson, and if the Browns really like him, they might have to get a bit of a move on to get him. But ultimately, it's the same old, you come from the Sean McVay coaching tree, we got to go change our pants. Cotton needs new shorts. Like, there is always going to be that next up-and-coming hot shot from Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. God forbid you say the Klint Kubiak, zone running scheme, and everyone's going to change their pants. So, Sean McVay coaching tree obviously generates a ton of buzz, but I'm not always sold on just because you coached under a certain coach means you're going to be super-duper successful everywhere else you go. Go ask all the Bill Belichick disciples that. Now, who do you want to hire for the OC? We've ran through 4 or 5 names at this point. Let me know who you would like to see the Browns hire as the next offensive coordinator. Checking out candidate number 5 here. QB coach / passing game coordinator for the Miami Dolphins, Darrell Bevell. Now, Darrell Bevell has been around the NFL for quite some time. Go back to his first stint as an offensive coordinator, and it was with the Minnesota Vikings back in 2006 to 2010. After that, he was the Seattle Seahawks' longtime OC, helping Russell Wilson get to the top of the mountain, helping them win a Super Bowl, also sort of calling a pass play at the goal line. So that's something to consider. Now, after that, he was the Lions OC, he was the Jags OC. He was also the interim head coach twice, once with Detroit, once with Jacksonville. So he's got a lot of experience in the NFL. What I like about Bevell is he has worked with a variety of quarterbacks, right? You go back to all those stints he had, and it's not like Darrell Bevell only knows one thing, and that's how to work with pocket passers, mobile quarterbacks. No, he's worked with a handful of different QBs. But the job he has done with Tua has probably been the most impressive element of his entire coaching career, right? Tua, before Bevell got there, and for what it's worth, Mike McDaniel as well, looked like a broken quarterback that couldn't stay on the field. And now compare what he's done over the past 2 seasons, and it is light years difference compared to his first 2 seasons down in South Beach. So give some credit to Bevell, but also I think it's worth noting whenever we do this with coaches, we act like they are the sole person responsible for a player's rise to success or turnaround. Like, also give credit to Tua because, he's the actual player, and give credit to Mike McDaniel because, he's the head coach. Sixth and final AVP replacement is 49ers pass game coordinator / assistant coach Klint Kubiak. So, in his first season with the 49ers as the passing game coordinator, I would say Brock Purdy had a pretty good year. Wouldn't you be inclined to believe and agree so that Purdy was probably without a doubt, top 10 and probably closer to 5 than 10 quarterback this season? Now, he does have some OC experience. He was the Vikings offensive coordinator back in 2021, but he also had a little bit of a rough stint in between Minnesota and San Francisco, where he was the Denver Broncos quarterbacks coach in 2022, and Russell Wilson did not thrive necessarily with Kubiak there. Ultimately, there's always this, I would say stigma, but just this blank check we write in our brains as fans of, if you go and coach under Kyle Shanahan, that means you are fixed and you are completely turned around and ready to roll. It's like the Nick Saban effect. But I think Kevin Stefanski needs to pick a safe option for offensive coordinator. You've got a great defense. You've got talent on offense. Just pick an offensive coordinator that can put the ball in the middle of the fairway, right? Don't need to find an OC that can maybe drive the green on a par 4. Just pick a guy that can get you in contention. I think back to last year when the Browns hired Jim Schwartz, and there was a lot of excitement around it, but there was also some skepticism of, hey, it didn't really work out super duper well when he was the end of Detroit, and that was a long time ago. He's a bit older of a coach. Is it going to translate over to Cleveland now? And I would say it worked out pretty well for him, which is why I land at Bill O'Brien as my pick of those 6 guys for the offensive coordinator job. Now, he's not a free agent, if you will, at the moment. We would need Gerard Mayo to move on from Bill O'Brien. And I'm not crazy about Bill O'Brien as a head coach, but I don't need him to be a head coach. I need Bill O'Brien to come in here and get the best out of Deshaun Watson. And if we're looking at those 6 candidates, who's going to do a better job at it than his previous head coach? You want to roll the dice on an OC that's either got no play calling experience if Kevin Stefanski decides to hand that off, which I don't think is a 0% chance, or a guy who's got no experience with Deshaun Watson, or how about his former head coach? Now, I'm not quite sure what the disconnect was at the end of O'Brien's time in Houston with Deshaun Watson, if they had a bit of a falling out, because it was kind of an ugly separation between O'Brien and the organization. But if they're still on good terms, and I need a coordinator that can get the best out of Deshaun Watson, I'm going to go the safe route, and I'm going to go with his former head coach. Some other quick news items I want to hit on here before I let you all go. So Justina Anderson reported that former Panthers assistant head coach and running backs coach Deuce Staley is currently in town visiting the Browns today. So Cleveland quickly moved on from Stump Mitchell and already have potentially his replacement in Deuce Staley. Now, I found this tweet from Tony Grossi to be rather interesting because he says, I've heard all day, and I haven't heard anyone else say this, by the way, that Stump Mitchell lost his job for being a media leak. I only know his preseason media appearances were candid and insightful. Godspeed, Stump. He also is in the Beard Hall of Fame. That last part is 100% true. I was always a big fan of Stump Mitchell, but ultimately the NFL is a what have you done for me lately business. And he got a lot of great play out of Nick Chubb, but then when Nick Chubb was taken away, the Browns' ground game went down the toilet. So I can see why Stefanski decided on the field-wise to move on from Mitchell, but the media leak, I'm not going to vouch for. I don't know if that's true or not, but just something to keep an eye on. More coaching news to get to here. MKC tweeted out confirming that Titans outside linebackers coach Ryan Crow has received permission to interview for the Browns defensive line job, as Paul NFL reported, means current defensive line coach Ben Bloom could be reassigned. This one caught me by surprise because on the surface, does anyone think the Browns defensive line had a bad year? I thought they had their best year as Kevin Stefanski under Kevin Stefanski's time as the head coach. So this one, I'm not quite sure as to why the Browns are looking to maybe redo their defensive line coaching operation. Maybe there's more to it and a little behind the scenes we don't know about going on. But that's the latest on the coaching news in Berea. I forgot my cards. And we're back. So Coop ran to my desk and got my cards because I forgot them. But now we're ready to pick a card. Off-season mode. This way we keep things light and entertaining at the end of each episode. And what can always be a bit of a dry off-season at times. Coop, do you want to pick a card? This is his favorite thing in the world, by the way.
8 of spades.
8 of spades.
It's a lock.
I like the conviction in your voice. I'm going to go with the King of Clubs.
Do you pick from the top?
Yeah.
Okay.
5 of clubs. 5 of clubs. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Make sure to subscribe for more coaching news, rumors, and updates throughout the week, and we'll see you all later.